The Alabama Crimson Tide outlast Arkansas on the heels of Bryce Young's sensational performance. We need to talk about that, plus some other interesting occurrences in this game. But before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from you. Hop down to the comments. Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Do you believe that this was a bona fide Heisman moment for Bryce Young? And let me know what you're thinking. And if you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification because I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it, and I'm on my push to 10,000 subscribers, and I'd love to have you along. And if you enjoyed this content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions, though they may seem small, are really impactful to content creators such as myself in both getting picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump straight into this. And I really want to focus first and foremost on the offense, specifically Bryce Young, because Bryce Young had a phenomenal day. And when we look at how this game went down into the waning moments of the fourth quarter, when we think about that and can think that the only negative play Bryce had was the sack, which resulted in a missed field goal, I will take that 10 out of 10 times. Bryce Young is a first-year starter, and even then, against a quality Arkansas defense, remember, Barry Odom is a really good defensive coordinator. Arkansas was a ranked team, and when we look back last year, I understand it's a different year, it's a different offense, it's a different offensive coordinator, but when we look back last year at Alabama's historic offense, Barry Odom and the Razorbacks were able to attempt to slow them down as effectively, or if not more effectively, than almost everybody else in the nation that Alabama played. So this was not just anybody. This was a very good defensive coordinator with a very good scheme on a team that has been playing really solid football. Sam Pittman, hats off to him and the job he has done in such a short span with the Arkansas Razorbacks. It's something I've pointed to multiple times. This is a really solid team, and they showed that tonight. But that's what makes Bryce Young's performance all the more impressive, is that it was against a quality defensive coordinator, against a quality team. Because at the end of the game, when the dust settled, Bryce Young was 31 of 40 for 559 yards, averaging 14 yards per attempt with 5 touchdowns to no interceptions. And he wasn't alone. Jamison Williams had a monster day, 8 receptions, 190 yards, averaging over 20 yards per reception, and John Mechie followed suit, 10 receptions, 173 yards, and a touchdown. So the Alabama offense was absolutely humming. Bryce Young had himself a monster day, breaking the single game record for most passing yards in a game for Alabama football, which is insane when you think about the last few quarterbacks that have gone through the capstone. Tua Tagovailoa was phenomenal, Mac Jones historic, and Bryce Young, his ability is a really, really fun thing to watch on Saturdays. He's someone I was very high on in the offseason, even back to last year. When you put on his Matter Day highlights, you could tell that he had special ability, and now he's showcasing it in the SEC. So the performance Bryce Young had is one that I absolutely think is a Heisman moment. But as much great as Bryce Young did, as much good as the offense had, there are some things we need to talk about for this Alabama team, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. Because even though Will Anderson continues his run of dominance, you want to talk about a defensive player that deserves Heisman hype. In my opinion, Will Anderson is the best defensive player in college football and is absolutely in the conversation for the best player in college football. He is a special talent at that edge position, and when you look at what he means to this Alabama defense, that's the part I don't think is getting talked about enough. We get so wrapped up in his stats, which are otherworldly, and deservedly so. When a player is posting over 13 sacks and the season isn't even done yet, you deserve to be talking about the stats. When that same player is doing so while also leading the nation in tackles for loss and quarterback hurries, it absolutely deserves to be brought to the forefront. But what I don't think that the college football community as a whole understands is how important he is to this defense even when he's not making plays. His energy, his tenacity, and his work ethic are infectious. And I think he is a massive, massive component not only to this defense, but to the success of the Crimson Tide team. His importance cannot be understated, and he had another good game. But when we were talking about this game in the week, the one thing I said is if you can mitigate Arkansas's rushing attack, which was a top rushing attack in the nation, mind you, Alabama had a very good chance to mitigate Arkansas's offense as a whole. However, when push came to shove, that is not what we saw. KJ Jefferson is a solid quarterback. He showed us he's a solid quarterback through various times this year, and he showed it again tonight. 22 of 30, 326 yards, averaging 10.9 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns to no interceptions. And KJ Jefferson hit some huge plays tonight. Treylon Burks was phenomenal for Arkansas. 8 receptions, 179 yards, averaging 22.4, but the incredibly surprising thing is he was not the only Arkansas wide receiver to go over 20 yards per reception. Warren Thompson also joined him. 2 receptions, 51 yards, averaging 25.5. And it's not comforting to know that the third leader in average yards per reception was 15.7. I point all this to say that even though Will Anderson and those guys up front did a really solid job in mitigating Arkansas's rushing attack, Arkansas's passing attack ate up yards all night, and that's concerning. That's concerning when you're able to take away what the other team does best and they're still able to get off chunk plays on offense. Now, at the end of the day, we've seen Alabama's defense play better than this, but the inconsistencies are really head-scratching. And it goes back to Nick Saban this week not being happy with the effort in practice. So when you don't have a great week of practice and Nick Saban says that openly to the media, I'm not incredibly surprised when we see a defense struggle in the way they did. The special teams once again got beat by a fake in which they had the play dead to rights, but just ran forward for some inexplicable reason. There's a lot to learn from this game. Nick Saban said so after the game. It's hard to be super down on the win when Bryce Young had the performance he did, almost throwing for 600 yards against a competent, capable defense and a competent defensive coordinator, one that is doing a fantastic job. But it's very hard to just be completely exuberant about this win when the secondary got beat the way they did. Now, at the end of the day, like I said, this Alabama secondary has played much better, but consistency, especially at this point of the season, is something that must be found. And when Nick Saban isn't happy with the effort in practice, we can see that pour over into the game. And so that's something that must be addressed going forward. I can't wait to hear what y'all are thinking about this game because it was super fun to watch. Awesome to see Bryce Young ball out, and Will Anderson continues to go on an absolute tear. But this was a great game to watch against a quality opponent, and I can't wait to hear from y'all. That's it. See ya.